The conquest of fire stands as the single most pivotal achievement in human history. It was not merely a discovery of a tool, but the forging of an alliance with a chemical reaction that would reshape our biology, our societies, and the very face of the Earth. From the flickering hearths of the Paleolithic caves to the roaring combustion chambers of modern rockets, the story of humanity is the story of our control over the flame. Long before we wrote history, we lived it in the dark. The early hominids were creatures of the daylight, vulnerable to the predators that prowled the night. The control of fire was not a singular event, but a slow, perilous evolution from opportunistic foraging to mastery. This relationship likely began with Homo erectus around 1.5 to 2 million years ago. These early humans were fire foragers, collecting smoldering embers from lightning strikes or volcanic vents. They fed these precious sparks, carrying them in horn or shell containers, acting as guardians of a flame they could not yet create. The leap to making fire, known as pyrotechnology, changed everything. Archaeological sites like Barnum in Suffolk, England, dating back 400,000 years, and Wonderwork Cave in South Africa provide some of the earliest definitive evidence of deliberate fire use. Whether by striking iron pyrite against flint to create sparks or using the friction of a fire drill, humans unlock the ability to summon heat and light on command. This leads us to the cooking hypothesis proposed by primatologist Richard Wrangham. He suggests that fire did more than warm us, it built us. Raw meat and tough tubers require massive energy to digest. By cooking food, early humans broke down complex proteins and starches, effectively pre-digesting them. This unlocked a caloric surplus that allowed the human gut to shrink and the human brain to grow exponentially. We are, biologically, the children of the cooking fire. Fire also created the concept of the night. Before fire, darkness meant sleep or silence. With a campfire, the day was extended. The hearth became the social nucleus, a place for storytelling, conflict resolution, and the transmission of culture. It is believed that the complex nuances of human language evolved in the safety of the firelight, where the day's lessons were turned into the evening's legends. To control fire, we had to misunderstand it for millennia, viewing it as a mystical spirit or a fundamental element. Today we know it as a chemical process called rapid exothermic oxidation. For centuries, we relied on the fire triangle of heat, fuel, and oxygen. Modern science added a fourth dimension, creating the fire tetrahedron. The first component is fuel, the reducing agent like wood, gas, or coal. The second is oxygen, the oxidizing agent usually from air. The third is heat, the energy required to raise the fuel to its ignition temperature. The fourth and crucial component is the chemical chain reaction, the self-sustaining transfer of energy that keeps the fire burning. Remove any one of these, and the fire dies. This principle underpins all modern firefighting, from the kitchen extinguisher to industrial suppression systems. When we look at the anatomy of a flame, we are not seeing matter, but a region of gas undergoing a reaction. In a candle or gas burner, the blue base indicates pre-mixed combustion, where fuel and oxygen mix efficiently before burning. This is the hottest part, where complete combustion occurs. The yellow body is a diffusion flame. The yellow glow comes from soot particles, or unburnt carbon glowing due to intense heat, a process known as incandescence. It represents incomplete combustion. Thermodynamics tells us that fire spreads through three mechanisms, each requiring different control strategies. Conduction is heat traveling through solids, like a metal beam, carrying fire through a wall. Convection is the upward movement of hot gases and smoke, which can ignite ceilings or upper floors through the chimney effect. Radiation is the transfer of heat via electromagnetic waves. This is why you feel heat from a bonfire without touching it, and how a fire can jump across a street to ignite a neighboring building. Before we had the periodic table, we had myth. Across every continent, the acquisition of fire is remembered not as an invention, but as a theft or a divine gift. Humans intuitively understood that fire belonged to the gods. In Greece, Prometheus stole fire from Mount Olympus, hiding it in a fennel stalk to give to humanity, suffering eternal torture for his generosity. In Polynesia, the demigod Maui sought the secret of fire from the goddess Mahuika. She gave him her fingernails, which were made of flame, one by one until he learned the secret of friction. Many Native American tribes, such as the Maidu and Karuk, tell of Coyote, the trickster who organized a relay race with other animals to steal fire from the selfish fire beings or thunder gods, passing the ember from animal to bring warmth to the freezing people. Aboriginal Australian Dreamtime stories tell of Crow stealing fire from 7 secret women or 2 sky brothers, creating the bushfire that allowed humans to cook. These myths evolved into sacred rituals. In ancient Persia, Zoroastrianism viewed fire as the physical representation of Asha, meaning truth and order. The Atash Berum, or fire of victory, is the highest grade of fire, gathered from 16 different sources, including lightning and cremation fires, and purified through complex rituals. It is never allowed to die. The Aztecs held the new fire ceremony every 52 years. Believing the sun might die, they extinguished every fire in the empire. High priests would wait for the Pleiades to reach the zenith, then kindle a new fire on the chest of a sacrificial victim. Runners would then carry torches from this single flame to relight every hearth in the land, symbolizing the rebirth of the cosmos. In Celtic tradition, the Beltane Fire Festival marked the beginning of summer, where cattle were driven between two bonfires to purify them and protect them from disease. Moving from myth to mechanism, civilization is essentially a history of hotter and hotter ovens. The ability to contain and elevate heat, known as pyrotechnology, dictated the materials we could master. The first synthetic material created by humans was ceramic. By heating clay to 900 degrees Celsius, early artisans performed a chemical transformation, turning soft earth into stone-hard vessels. This allowed for food storage, brewing, and the transport of water, fundamental for settled societies. Then came the Metal Ages. Copper melts at a relatively modest 1.085 degrees Celsius. Early pottery kilns could reach this temperature. By adding tin, ancients created bronze, an alloy harder than stone. This era gave us the first swords, armor, and durable tools. The Iron Age presented a new challenge. Iron was abundant, but locked away by its high melting point of 1538 degrees Celsius. Ancient kilns couldn't melt it. Instead, they used bloomery furnaces to heat iron ore with charcoal. The burning charcoal produced carbon monoxide, which stripped oxygen from the ore, leaving behind a spongy mass of solid iron called a bloom that had to be hammered to remove impurities. This required immense labor and fuel, driving the development of charcoal production. Glassmaking is the supreme art of fire control. Whether discovered by Phoenician sailors cooking on sandy beaches or by Mesopotamian potters, it requires maintaining temperatures of 500 degrees Celsius to melt silica sand. The Romans revolutionized this with the blowpipe, turning a luxury item into a commodity that eventually gave us lenses, windows, and test tubes, the tools of modern science. Fire was also the first farm tool. Swidden or slash-and-burn agriculture allowed humans to convert forests into fields. The burning biomass released a pulse of nitrogen and potash into the soil, acting as a fertilizer. While often criticized today for deforestation, in the Neolithic era, this was the engine of human expansion, allowing populations to migrate and thrive in dense woodlands. In the 18th century, humanity learned to convert heat into motion. We stopped just using fire to change matter and started using it to move matter. The Industrial Revolution was fueled by coal. The steam engine is an external combustion engine, meaning the fire burns outside the cylinder to heat water. This allowed us to drain mines, drive locomotives, and power looms. It broke the reliance on muscle and wind, but it was heavy and inefficient. The 19th century saw the fire move inside the machine with the internal combustion engine. Inventors like Nicholas Otto and Rudolf Diesel realized that if you mixed fuel and air inside a cylinder and ignited it, the expanding gases could push a piston directly. Your car engine is essentially a cannon that fires thousands of times a minute. It relies on the precise timing of the fire triangle occurring in milliseconds. This technology shrank the power plant, making automobiles and airplanes possible. Rocketry is combustion taken to its limit. To escape gravity, we burn fuel like hydrogen or kerosene with oxidizers like liquid oxygen to create a directed explosion of immense velocity. The Saturn V rocket was essentially a skyscraper-sized torch, controlling a reaction energetic enough to level a city, yet precise enough to carry humans to the moon. As our cities grew higher and our industries hotter, the threat of fire evolved. We responded with the discipline of fire protection engineering. This involves passive protection, which is built into the architecture. Firewalls, fire-rated doors, and intumescent paints which swell to form an insulating char are designed to contain a fire within a single room or floor, a concept known as compartmentation. Active protection involves systems that act dynamically. Sprinklers, smoke detectors, and hail and gas suppression systems used in data centers break the chain reaction of the fire tetrahedron without damaging electronics. However, we are currently facing a crisis of megafires in the Anthropocene. A century of aggressive fire suppression left forests loaded with excess deadwood fuel, and climate change has dried this fuel out. Modern management is shifting from suppression to mitigation. We use prescribed burns, which are deliberate, controlled fires, to mimic the natural cycle and reduce fuel loads. We now fight fire with data. Satellites using infrared sensors detect heat signatures from orbit. AI algorithms predict fire spread based on wind and terrain. Drones drop dragon eggs, which are incendiary spheres, to start backburns that starve an approaching wildfire of fuel. The history of humanity is written in ash and forged in flame. We are the only species that does not flee from fire, but runs toward it. We captured it in the clay kiln to build our cities, trapped it in the piston to drive our cars, and focused it in the rocket nozzle to touch the stars. Yet, as wildfires rage and carbon emissions rise, we are reminded that fire is never truly tamed, only negotiated with. The control of fire remains our oldest responsibility and our most dangerous power. We are still, after a million years, gathering around the hearth, trying to keep the darkness at bay while being careful not to burn the house down.